First of all, Excellencies and guests, thank you for joining the panel itself. Your Excellency, Youngmin Gu, I think something that's really interesting is you started off as an authority on intellectual property and then have changed into a ministry. Can you discuss why this was important to do in this day and age?
말씀하신 대로 Korean Intellectual Property Office가 지난 10월 1일 Ministry of Intellectual Property 미니스트리얼 기관으로 승격되었습니다. 제가 알기로는 세계에서 처음으로 장관급 특허 지식재산을 담당하는 기관이 되었습니다. 네, 그 이유는 한국은 기술 중심 그리고 혁신 중심의 나라이기 때문에 지식재산 전략이 국가 발전에 매우 중요하다고 생각을 해서 차관급 기관에서 미니스트리 장관급 기관으로 승격을 해서 지금 3달 정도 되었습니다.
Great, thank you. And I think that's the important point, that we are going from physical to technological and operating on the cloud more and more, and that is changing the way that we engage. So when we're talking about clusters, we're talking about companies, suppliers, trade, talent, private and public partnerships, and connecting all those things together to be able to create more effective economies. And I think that really falls in line with Oman's Vision 2040. So Your Excellency, can you tell us about what you've been doing recently, such as opening a center to attract FDI, connecting more globally in that sense? How does this greater connectivity through clusters fit into your vision?
Sure. I think as a start, it's very good to understand how we look at Vision 2040. And the way we look at it, it's a connection between different priorities. There is one for economic development, economic diversification. There's one for private sector investments. There's one also for governance, environment, and so on. So the way we look at it is like a movement in one priority will affect the movement in other priorities. But if you think about economic development, our main focus is basically the growth, the targeted growth. And we had a good run for the past 5 years, although 2 years have been missed for COVID. We had a roughly 3.6 growth in GDP. And there's expectation actually from IMF for 2026 to be basically 4% growth. So over the past couple of years, I think we're making a good move on this front, as you can see from the reflection on the economic growth as well. We're also we're having also good results in terms of foreign direct investments. It's already increasing. We roughly, I think for the past couple of years, we reached 30 billion in foreign direct investments. That's roughly 11% of GDP. And basically, it's a reflection of the combined efforts of focusing on innovation and manufacturing, and also focusing on the business environment overall. So all these efforts resulted in the results that you see, basically the impact on our KPIs, international KPIs as well. And we're providing a good platform for this actually to be nurtured and moved as well. We also recently been into a new structure. There's a new office being developed basically for the Vice President for Economic Affairs that reports to the Sultan directly. And part of the initiative is basically to making economic decisions much faster, much easier as well.
And from my understanding then, it doesn't seem like it's one particular sector, but it's integrating technology and AI and all of that into every aspect for quicker decision making and connectivity. Is that correct?
Exactly. And if you look at the current 5-year plan, there's actually a focus on 3 main sectors. One of them is actually digital economy, and there's a whole pillar for that as well. And there's also focus on manufacturing, also focus on tourism as well.
So I'll shift to Talal, because I think this is your domain when it comes to data, impact, from AI and technology. Can you talk about what your role has been, for example, in the UAE side of greater connectivity domestically, but also regionally and globally?
Sure, thank you. So at G42, our KPI is GDP. That's kind of how we consider things. And how do we move the needle on GDP in a way that has the right infrastructure that allows for the manufacturing of intelligence in this new age economy? And when I say that, I say it because we have we're modern day factory builders. We're a private sector company that is capitalizing on the comparative and competitive advantages that the UAE brings to bear with energy and proximity and connectivity, all the different ingredients that it takes to build these modern day either token factories or agent factories. And we have both components in that AI value chain within G42. From physical infrastructure to digital infrastructure, be it your cloud environments or your GPUs and AI accelerators, to model development and then applications and solutions that cut across several different industries. And so when we get that digital infrastructure in place, what we're doing is effectively building what we call an intelligence grid that really underpins the enablement of AI native societies and helps us gain those productivity points that are actually moving the needle on GDP. And that's kind of how we've attacked the problem. And it's not only for domestic consumption. When we talk about 5 gigawatts of AI, of energy that would be used to manufacture intelligence in an AI campus that we announced last May when President Trump was here, we're talking about the exportability of those tokens, those quadrillions of tokens that will be manufactured, not just for domestic consumption in the UAE, but for exportability around a 3,200 kilometer radius in sub-60 millisecond latency. So that's a huge part of where we're headed in terms of our contributions.
You mentioned some points as well about exporting tokens and such, but how do you actually measure your success in this, right? Because I think it's very widespread, it's very integrated, and then how are you measuring this, movement in GDP and attributing it to the work that you're doing, for example?
So we're a small country. We've got 10 million or so in population. So we obviously need to continue to punch above our weight and do what we can with what we have. So the more digital knowledge workers you're going to be able to create in the agentic form, the more potential scientific breakthroughs you can come up with. These are the types of things that we are looking at in healthcare, for example, in energy, in public sector services, the TAM application, for example, in helping ensure that you are using AI to augment human ingenuity and amplify what each individual contributor in any particular function can productively output.
It sounds like it's scaling, making things more efficient, and then that in time will reflect in less costs to increase economic output overall.
Correct.
And Your Excellency Vidmantas, you're in a unique position when we're talking about cross-border, regional in the EU, but then also global as well. Can you talk about what you have been doing in terms of working within clusters and expanding, partnerships as this is becoming more and more global, as we talk about technology, IP, that is definitely crossing borders more and more as we see today?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I should mention that after regaining the independence, Lithuania had to find its own place in the world to catch up with countries and societies and businesses which had an earlier start and better positions. So of course we had to define what we would like to do, where we have our comparative advantages. And as for today, we are trying hard in biotechnologies, ICT technologies and artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, government tech and fintech. And your question is driving me directly to talk about the clusters, or we call it maybe more innovation hubs in Lithuania, public and private partnership. I have to mention the biotechnology hub created or initiated by one private company, which will be one of the largest in Europe in biotech in a span of 10 years. Investment will amount of 7 billion euros. Gene engineering and new products for personal healthcare solutions will be invented. Then we are creating cybersec, AI and ICT technology clusters with Lithuanian unicorns like Tesonet, Vinted, who overgrow their borders. We call ourselves also a compact country. If we want to work, we have to work on a scale, and scale is outside our borders. naming the clusterization or cooperation within European Union. So Lithuania is participant of a Giga AI Factory in Europe common initiative with Poland and other Baltic states. When, of course, we are working also in space industry within European Union, so no single country can work it alone. So this cluster includes from Lithuanian side laser technologies and micro satellites. Then we can talk about cross-border cooperation, not even within European Union. But for instance, it's sadly what we have to develop that because of Russia's war against Ukraine. But for the drone and anti-drone technologies in defense industry, we're closely working with our neighbors within European Union, and companies are working with Ukrainian side to get to test that. And of course, as Lithuania is one of the leading countries in laser technologies, we are working together in clusterization with private businesses in Silicon Valley, in the United States, and in Taiwan. Recently, trying to get that synergy to work on products and solutions.
Let me follow up, because I mean, you mentioned a lot of different partnerships, but then also hardships as well, you know, with the Russia war in Ukraine. And I wanted to ask you as well, we are living in a more cooperative world with clusters and needing to work together, but at the same time, it's also become more fragmented, you know, with new tariff policies, you know, that have come out last year. We were seeing in the news constantly that, you know, partnerships being lost, but then others being gained. This is particularly for the ministers who are operating on that global level. How difficult or easier are you finding it now to work with other countries to merge these clusters and lean on cooperation versus fragmentation?
I am not a prophet, and I not pretend to be how the world is turning to be out in the near future.
Yeah, just maybe looking at what you're facing at the moment.
Recent events, and we were talking in a corridors with representatives from European Union, from European Commission. This is the really good time for countries and regions looking for partnerships. As well, free trade agreement, Commission is negotiating with UAE recently, this week here in Abu Dhabi. Or European Union just signed a FTA with India. 25 years of negotiations also recently resulted into a free trade agreement with Mercosur. So this is good new opportunities for European Union countries and also for our partners to get that cooperation. And let's say with Global Gateway Initiative, it's very good time and good timing for clusterization in the regions. We're talking about artificial intelligence and technologies which now erupted in the world, which non-single country or company can own. So we have to work together to cooperate and to define how to.
So with more diversified partners, maybe not with the traditional partners only as before, maybe?
We have saying in Lithuania that good fruit doesn't grow in greenhouse.
In a closed environment.
Yeah, in isolated, close space. So you need to have a challenge to develop. So partners, all partners are the same partners. New possibilities are new possibilities. And when there are challenges, you just only develop.
Definitely. No, I like that example. And looking onto the technicality of it in terms of, for example, with social media, with the Internet of Things, there isn't that cross-border like regulation and policies that protect the interactions cross-border as much. So Your Excellency Youngmin, can you talk about when you were talking about intellectual property? How are you facing this in terms of if someone wants to adopt intellectual property from your country, are there the guidelines there to be able to implement agreements, that type of thing, or are we still at a very nascent stage?
Intellectual property 지재권 파트에서 국제적으로는 국제 규범들이 많이 있습니다. 그래서 IP를 각 국가에 등록하는 절차에 관해서는 내셔널 로우가 국제적으로 통일화되어 있고, 그리고 인포스먼트와 관련해서는 각국에서 다른 법률을 가지고 있습니다. 그래서 이런 부분들은 주로 다자 차원이라기보다는 양자 차원에서 협력이 이루어지고 있는 상황입니다.
So to understand, what are you doing in that case to be able to overcome those challenges that you're addressing in working with other countries?
IP 필드에서는 주로 이제 국제적으로는 이제 기업들이 글로벌리 이제 비즈니스를 하기 때문에 각 국에서 활동을 할 때 지식재산을 등록을 받아야 됩니다. 예를 들면 한국 기업이 UAE에서 비즈니스를 하고자 할 때 UAE의 특허와 상표를 등록받아야 됩니다. 그러려면 이 제도들이 지식재산과 관련한 제도들이 비슷하거나 동일해야지 기업들이 더 쉽게 그 나라에서 지식재산권을 취득할 수가 있습니다. 그런 차원에서 각국과 제도적인 통일을 이루기 위한 그런 협력을 하고 있고요. 두 번째로 다른 나라에서 자국의, 그러니까 UAE에서 한국의 특허가 또는 상표가 침해당했을 경우에 그것을 구제하기 위해서는 외교적으로 또는 UAE의 사법제도를 활용해서 구제될 수 있도록 외교적인 노력을 하고 있고요. 그런 차원에서 IP 협력이 이루어지고 있습니다. 그리고 하나 더 추가적으로는 기술은 국내에서만 유통되는 것이 아니기 때문에 한국의 기술이 UAE에 거래가 될 수 있고요. 이전될 수가 있고 UAE 기술이 한국으로도 또 트랜스퍼 될 수 있기 때문에 그런 기술 협력 분야에서도 외교적으로 협력하고 있습니다.
Thank you. And I think you addressed the main point that the countries that are working together need to have advanced policies and regulations to be able to address these issues. And, you know, between South Korea and the UAE, those are definitely two examples, but maybe other countries that don't have those established yet, it's still too difficult. And recently with G42, identifying about I think they're called digital embassies, correct, in terms of being able to export and scale on sovereign AI and I guess you can call it like digital ethics, you know, to practice as well, you know, between for intellectual property, how to organize deals. So, I mean, Talal, can you expand on that if you've worked in this area, and also if you'd include the idea of the public-private partnerships to really fuel, you know, what the work that you're doing?
Yeah, of course. And so with digital embassies, I think the idea there was how do we create the ability for other countries to benefit from what we are able to put in place. It's not commonplace that every country would be able to dedicate 5 gigawatts of capacity for the manufacturing of intelligence, right? And when you look at on a per gigawatt basis, the capex that's involved with this type of digital infrastructure, an AI data center, when you account for power generation, the shell and core, the liquid cooling, the network gear, then obviously the AI accelerators, it's around the $50 billion capex per gigawatt. So to the minister's point earlier, no one country in the world or one company in the world can do this on their own. It's going to require a lot of public-private partnership.
Yeah, it's like a sandbox type experiment, right? Like everyone's trying it, they're doing it, seeing what works, what doesn't, and then it's a experiment at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, the build out of that AI infrastructure, we have a good grasp on. Obviously, what's built on top of it, there is a lot of experimentation in terms of creating the agentic AI components that will probably take the tokens and create value out of them or use cases out of them. But in that infrastructure part, that's the underlying component that's needed to be able to power AI native societies. So what we've been able to do is, when we think of, on a global level, the bottlenecks, the key bottleneck right now is energy and obviously ready data center capacity to be able to deploy, which typically takes around an 18 to 24 month time frame, if you have the energy and if there's the political capital and economic wherewithal to make those types of investments. So in many parts of the global south in particular, it's been prohibitive. And thus the idea of a digital embassy is a way to preserve sovereignty for another country hosting its data in your country. And you do this in a variety of different ways. You have policy and technical controls that are applied to those environments. You have G2G agreements that are made, which inspire the level of confidence required that there is going to be sovereignty preserved or the data privacy laws of another country, even though it's hosted here. Just similar to how a normal embassy operates in the physical world, right? So you have the Vienna Convention that kind of dictates that the land and the embassy is subject to the laws of the foreign country. And so the concept is to help amplify the ability to accelerate time to value in countries that don't have the ability to scale and invest in that infrastructure on an immediate basis, and leverage high bandwidth, low latency connectivity from the UAE to be able to serve those countries from the AI infrastructure that we're building out here.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we're at the very early stages of this. We're talking about investment, all these big things happening, but it is still at the very beginning stages, correct? And the people who are acting now are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And I think, again, going back to Oman with its Vision 2040, that's, you're addressing these things now. We're seeing all the changes that are taking place. Can you talk about what output you're expecting from this? So the investments you're making now, do you have targets in terms of what shift, as Talal mentioned, moving GDP, the needle on GDP? What do you expect that to look like with the decisions you're making today, connecting more globally, incorporating, with AI, chips, all of that, and then in the maybe like 5-10 years to come?
The main focus is growth, basically, GDP growth. And we're trying to put targets on key sectors that are contributing so much to that growth. And one of them is digital economy, along with AI and all the different paths that are available basically to improve or expedite the movement on digital economy as well. And we have also a national program that targets focusing specifically on AI, and that's focusing on two elements. There is, of course, the business element of it and also the government element of it. In terms of expectation, the way we see basically innovation and AI helping within the country is mainly two dimensions. The first one, of course, is to expedite the level of innovation. And to do that, of course, you need certain enablers to do that. That relates to business environment, for example, funding, so much work on also IP as well, because IP is very critical as a cornerstone for innovation. It basically establishes a trust between different players to work together and build on something that is valuable. And with that trust, of course, comes the other pillars, of course, the funding. I don't want to quote Tom Cruise on this, show me the money, basically. But people need to see that there is value, and the value comes from actually IP and giving value to certain elements of startups. As I said, the main focus, of course, is the growth. And for that, we're just working on the different enablers that basically enable us to move towards that direction as well.
Thank you. And I think with that, we went full circle and back to IP, which was at the beginning of our conversation. Yeah. And we are out of time. I've just gotten the signal. But thank you all for attending.